Let me tell you something about billionaires. They think the world is a red carpet rolled out just for them. They think every room they enter should drop to its knees. They think a girl like me, a broke barista with $37 in her checking account and a dream of becoming an illustrator that nobody wants to pay for, is just background noise. Furniture. A speed bump on the highway of their perfect, golden life. Lucas Sterling thought that too. Right up until my size 7 red full leather stiletto connected with the back of his skull at approximately 40 miles per hour. But I'm getting ahead of myself. It started with crab cakes. Specifically, the miniature truffle-infused crab cakes being circulated on silver trays at the Sterling Annual Charity Gala, the most exclusive event in Obsidian City. Every year, the Sterling Corporation rented out the entire top floor of the Meridian Grand Hotel, filled it with champagne fountains and A-list celebrities, and pretended to care about orphan wolves or endangered wetlands or whatever cause tested well with focus groups that quarter. The ticket price alone could have paid my rent for 6 years. I did not have a ticket. What I had was a navy blue dress I'd found at a thrift store for $30, a pair of red full-leather heels from a discount rack, and an industrial-grade lack of shame. My name is Harper Quinn. I'm 24. I pour lattes at a diner called The Grind in the Neon District, which is Obsidian City's polite way of saying the part of town where the streetlights flicker and the cockroaches have union representation. At night, I draw. Illustrations, character designs, comic panels. I'm good. I'm really good. But apparently, good doesn't pay the electric bill in a city owned by tech billionaires and wolfpack politics. So when my coworker Jess mentioned she'd swiped a spare staff lanyard from a catering friend who was working the Sterling Gala, I did what any self-respecting, starving Omega would do. I put on the only nice dress I owned and went to eat rich people's food. The gala was everything I expected and nothing I was prepared for. Crystal chandeliers the size of small cars. A string quartet playing something moody and European. The air was thick with the smell of expensive cologne, old money, and the sharp metallic undercurrent of way too many alpha pheromones crammed into one ballroom. I pressed myself against the buffet table and inhaled a crab cake so fast I nearly choked. Easy, Harper. You're not a raccoon. You're a sophisticated gatecrasher. I snagged a champagne flute from a passing waiter, adopted my best "I definitely belong here" expression, and surveyed the room. Tech moguls, supermodels, politicians with teeth so white they could blind you, and everywhere the low hum of power. The wolves in this room didn't just have money. They had rank. They had territory. They had the kind of authority that makes your knees buckle if you're not careful. I was being very careful. Invisible even. Harper Quinn, professional wallflower, queen of the crab cake station. Then the room changed. It wasn't a sound. It was a vacuum. Like someone had pulled the oxygen out through a straw. The string quartet stumbled on a note. Conversations died mid-sentence. The sea of silk and tuxedos split down the middle of the ballroom like someone had drawn a line in the marble. Lucas Sterling had arrived. I'd seen him on screens, obviously. Everyone in Obsidian City had. You couldn't ride the subway without his face staring down from a Sterling Corp ad. CEO of a tech empire worth more than the GDP of most countries. Youngest alpha to ever lead the Dark Moon Pack, the most powerful wolf clan on the continent. Forbes called him a visionary. The tabloids called him the uncrowned king. His employees called him sir and tried not to make eye contact. But seeing Lucas Sterling on a billboard is like seeing a photo of a hurricane. It doesn't prepare you for the real thing. He was tall. Not just tall, architecturally tall. Broad shoulders that strained against a tuxedo that was clearly custom-built and still seemed barely able to contain him. Dark hair pushed back from a face that looked like it had been designed by someone who hated the concept of ugly. A jaw that could cut diamonds. Eyes the color of a winter storm. He didn't walk into that room. He conquered it. I shrank deeper into the shadow of the buffet table, clutching my stolen champagne like a life preserver. Just stay invisible, Harper. Your furniture. Very well-dressed, slightly tipsy furniture. He moved past the crowd without acknowledging a single person. His gaze was fixed somewhere ahead, some VIP section where the real power players were waiting. Every step radiated a cold, bored authority that said, I own this room, and everything in it is beneath my notice. He was 4 feet away from me. 3. 2. I held my breath. His polished Italian leather shoe came down directly on the trailing hem of my thrift store dress. Rear up. The sound cut through the silence like a scream. I felt the fabric tear away from my waist, felt the sudden cold air hit my ankle as my beautiful $30 navy blue dress, the nicest thing I'd owned in years, ripped clean open along the side. I gasped. My champagne glass slipped from my fingers and shattered on the marble floor, splashing fizzy gold all over his $1,000 shoes. Lucas Sterling stopped. He looked down, not at me, at his shoes. He examined the champagne splatter with the expression of a man who just discovered gum on the bottom of his loafer. Then his gaze flicked to the torn strip of fabric under his heel. He lifted his foot. He kicked the scrap of my dress away like it was litter. And he kept walking. He didn't look at my face. Not once. "Someone deal with this," he said over his shoulder, the words delivered with all the warmth of a corporate memo. Something detonated inside my chest. It wasn't the dress. It wasn't the embarrassment of standing in a ruined outfit in front of Obsidian City's elite. It was the absolute, soul-crushing arrogance of being treated like I didn't exist. Like I was a stain on his shoe. Like $30 and 3 months of saving, and the only thing that made me feel like a person instead of a ghost didn't matter at all. "Hey!" My voice cracked across the ballroom like a whip. 500 heads turned. 500 jaws dropped. You do not yell at Lucas Sterling. You don't make eye contact with Lucas Sterling. You certainly don't shout hey at him like he's a bartender who forgot your order. He didn't stop. He was already 6 steps away, moving like the sound of my voice was beneath his processing power. I said "Hey." My blood was lava. Logic packed a suitcase and left the country. Self-preservation sent a text saying good luck, blocked my number, and moved to Canada. I reached down. I unbuckled the strap of my right shoe, a red full-leather stiletto with a reinforced heel that I'd bought for $30 at a discount outlet. It was cheap. It was gaudy. It was solid. And it fit perfectly in my hand. You shouldn't do that to a lady. I drew my arm back and launched that shoe with every ounce of fury, frustration, and financial desperation I had. The stiletto sailed through the air in a perfect arc, a red missile of righteous broke girl rage, and connected squarely with the back of Lucas Sterling's skull. Thud. The sound bounced off the vaulted ceiling. The string quartet went dead silent. A waiter dropped a tray. Somewhere in the back, a woman fainted. Or maybe that was just Obsidian City's collective dignity hitting the floor. Lucas stumbled forward 1 step. He stopped. Slowly, with the kind of deliberate calm that makes your survival instincts scream run, he reached up and touched the back of his head. He turned around. His eyes weren't bored anymore. They were molten gold, glowing, ancient, and locked directly onto mine. Now, here's the thing about silence. Sometimes it's peaceful. Sometimes it's awkward. And sometimes it's the sound of 500 people simultaneously realizing they are about to witness a homicide. A dozen Sterling security operatives materialized from the shadows, moving with the blurred speed of elite predators. Tactical earpieces buzzing. Hands on weapons. Secure the perimeter. Target acquired. Target? That was me. I was the target. My survival instinct, which had apparently been in the bathroom during the shoe-throwing incident, finally showed up, took one look at the situation, and started screaming. I spun around. 1 heel on, 1 foot bare. My exit strategy was a lopsided, undignified hobble sprint toward the service doors. I ducked under a waiter's tray, sending a cascade of shrimp into the face of a tech heiress, and scrambled for the kitchen. But before I pushed through the swinging doors, I made the mistake of looking back. The guards were closing in, but Lucas raised 1 hand. A single sharp gesture. They froze mid-stride like someone had hit pause on reality. He wasn't looking at them. He was looking at the floor. At my shoe. He bent down, the motion fluid and terrifyingly graceful for a man his size, and picked it up. The red stiletto looked absurd in his massive hand. Cheap. Worn. The faux leather was peeling at the edges. He turned it over, examining it with the focused intensity of a man studying a rare artifact. Then he did something that made my stomach plummet through the floor. He lifted the shoe to his face. And he inhaled. His eyes snapped open. Even from across the ballroom, I saw the transformation. The cold, corporate irritation evaporated. What replaced it was something raw, hungry, Primal. Ancient. He looked like a wolf who just caught a scent he'd been tracking across centuries. His eyes found me through the swinging doors. His lips moved, forming a single word. I couldn't hear it over the blood pounding in my ears, but I read it on his mouth.
Mine.
I shoved through the doors and ran. Through the kitchen. Past a chef screaming about sanitation protocols. I slipped on grease near the dishwasher, kicked off my remaining shoe, and burst barefoot into the alley behind the hotel. I ran until my lungs felt like crumpled paper. I ran until the glittering tower of the Meridian Grand was just a smear of light behind me. I ran until I hit the familiar grime and flickering neon of my neighborhood. I thought I'd made it. I thought I'd vanished into the 10 million anonymous faces of Obsidian City. Then my phone buzzed. Then every phone on the block buzzed. Then the massive digital billboards that line the neon district, the ones that usually advertise energy drinks and payday loans, all switched to the same feed simultaneously. A news anchor with panic in her eyes. A headline in screaming red letters, Sterling CEO attacked at charity gala. Sources confirm that Lucas Sterling, CEO of Sterling Corporation and Alpha of the Dark Moon Pack, was assaulted tonight by an unidentified female suspect. While initial reports indicated a standard projectile, Sterling's security team has not ruled out the possibility of a weaponized device disguised as footwear. The suspected assailant remains at large. I stared at the screen from the sidewalk, barefoot and panting. A weaponized device disguised as footwear. It was a shoe. A $30 shoe. The only weapon on it was maybe some sidewalk bacteria and sheer audacity. The broadcast continued. Sterling Corporation has activated a citywide security protocol. All bridges and transit lines are suspended until further notice. Facial recognition sweeps are in progress across all sectors. I stumbled into my apartment building, a crumbling 5-story walk-up that smelled like someone was cooking cabbage in a pipe leak. I slammed the door of Unit 4C, through all 3 deadbolts, and slid down to the peeling linoleum floor. Okay, Harper, you're fine. He doesn't know who you are. You were just a blur in a blue dress. A blurry, shoe-throwing blur. I crawled to my ancient couch and turned on the TV. Every channel. Same story. The suspect is described as the anchor squinted at her teleprompter. Fierce, unhinged, and exhibiting extreme disregard for authority. I buried my face in a throw pillow and screamed. I wasn't a terrorist. I was a barista who got mad. But in Lucas Sterling's world, there was no difference. Defiance was an act of war. I needed to leave. Underground tunnels. The old maintenance corridors beneath the neon district that the city forgot existed. I'd hidden in them before during rent disputes with my landlord, a charming man named Gus who communicated exclusively through threats and passive-aggressive notes. I grabbed a duffel bag, hoodie, socks, toothbrush, the emergency cash I kept hidden inside a hollowed-out copy of Pride and Prejudice. I reached for the window latch and froze. Below, moving with silent precision down my trash-strewn street, was a convoy of matte black armored SUVs. Not police. These bore the sleek silver S of the Sterling Corporation logo. They moved like sharks through shallow water, completely alien against the backdrop of dollar stores and broken streetlights. Sterling security never came to the Neon District. This neighborhood wasn't even on their radar. We were the part of the city they pretended didn't exist. The lead vehicle's PA system crackled to life. Residents of Block 13 remain indoors. A mandatory identity verification sweep is in progress. Compliance is required. Resistance will result in detainment. My heart hammered so hard I could feel it in my teeth. They weren't just doing facial recognition. They were doing scent sweeps. Combining Sterling's AI-powered surveillance grid with good old-fashioned alpha tracking instinct. He'd probably used the citywide camera network to narrow it down to my district, and now he was here to finish the job with his nose. I held my breath and peeked through the blinds. The lead SUV stopped directly in front of my building. The door opened. Not gently. It was practically torn off by someone who found the concept of door handles beneath him. Lucas Sterling stepped onto the cracked pavement of the Neon District. Seeing him on a billboard was one thing. Seeing him in a gilded ballroom was another. But seeing him here, standing amidst overflowing dumpsters and graffiti-tagged brick, was like watching a panther walk into a pet store. He was still in his tuxedo, though the tie was gone and the collar was open, exposing a throat corded with tension. His jaw was set. His eyes were glowing faintly, catching the light of the flickering street lamp like 2 gold coins. A security captain jogged up to him. "Sir, let our team clear the building first. The structural integrity is questionable, and the residents. Leave." It wasn't a shout. It was a growl that I felt vibrate through 3 stories of cheap concrete. The kind of sound that rewrites your DNA's understanding of the word danger. "Sir," I said, "leave. All of you. Your equipment is confusing the trail. She's here. I can taste her in the air." The captain retreated so fast he nearly tripped. Lucas stood alone on my street. He closed his eyes, tilted his head back, and breathed in like he was drinking the night air. I scrambled backward, knocking over a stack of sketchbooks. "No way. There are 60 units in this building. It smells like mildew and microwave burritos and old carpet. There is no way he can isolate vanilla and rain from all of this." Lucas opened his eyes. He didn't scan the building. He looked up, directly at my 4th-floor window, like he'd known exactly where I was from the second he stepped out of the car. He started walking toward the front entrance with the unhurried certainty of a man who had never been told no. I heard him on the stairs, not rushing, not running, just climbing. Each footstep was a slow, deliberate drumbeat. Thud, thud, thud. 2nd floor. 3rd floor. I grabbed the only weapon available, a cast-iron skillet from the stove. It was heavy, greasy, and had been used primarily for making sad single-serving omelets. But it was all I had. The footsteps stopped outside my door. The silence that followed was suffocating, thick with an alpha pressure, so heavy my knees tried to buckle. My wolf, that traitorous little voice in the back of my brain, whimpered and begged me to open the door, bare my throat, and submit. "Shut up," I told her. "We don't kneel for billionaires. No pounding. No barked commands. Just a single, polite knock. Knock, knock." The most terrifying sound I'd ever heard. "I know you're in there." His voice came through the wood like smoke. Deep. Velvet wrapped around a blade. "And I know you're holding a frying pan." "How? Can alphas smell cast iron? Go away," I shouted. "I have a highly contagious disease. Very catchy. You definitely don't want this." A low, dark chuckle vibrated through the door. "Open the door, Harper, or I remove it from the wall. And I'd hate to damage your property. It looks like a stiff breeze might do the job for me." He knew my name. Of course he knew my name. He'd probably had my full background check, my credit score, horrifying, and my middle school yearbook photo pulled up on a holographic screen before his car even left the hotel. I looked at the skillet. I looked at the window. 4 stories up, straight down to concrete. Fine. If I was going down, I was going down swinging. Or, at least negotiating. I unlocked the first deadbolt. Click. The second. Click. The third. Click. I raised the skillet to shoulder height, took a breath, and yanked the door open. Lucas Sterling filled the door frame like he'd been engineered for it. Up close, without a crowd between us, he was overwhelming. A wall of muscle and Italian wool and a scent, ozone and cedar, and something wilder underneath, that made my head swim despite every rational thought screaming at me to be afraid. His eyes tracked from my tangled hair to my bare, dirty feet to the cast iron pan hovering near his left ear. The predatory intensity in his expression flickered. Something else took its place. Not anger. Fascination. "You," he said softly, "are a very difficult woman to find. And you," I snapped, tightening my grip on the handle, "owe me $30. The fascination cracked. Lucas Sterling, alpha of the Dark Moon Pack, CEO of a trillion-dollar corporation, blinked at me like I'd just spoken in a language he'd never heard. "I beg your pardon?" "My dress." I jabbed the skillet toward his chest like a pointer. "It was $30. Thrift store. It was the nicest thing I owned, and you ripped it with your giant, overpriced shoes, and you didn't even say sorry. So before you drag me off to whatever corporate dungeon you've got planned, I want my $30. Cash. I don't take checks from tyrants." Silence. The most powerful man on the continent stood in my crumbling doorway, surrounded by the faint aroma of microwaved noodles and lemon-scented floor cleaner, looking completely and utterly baffled. He'd expected screaming, begging, fainting maybe. He had not expected an invoice. A slow, incredulous smile pulled at the corner of his mouth. Not kind, not soft. It was the smile of a wolf who just realized his prey had teeth. $30, he repeated, like he was tasting the words. Plus tax. He stepped over the threshold. I stepped back, skillet still raised. He reached out, not fast, but with a deliberate slowness that dared me to swing. His hand wrapped around the cast iron. I'll take this, he murmured, before you hurt yourself.
He didn't yank.
He just held. And because he was a genetically enhanced apex predator and I was a malnourished omega who considered a single avocado toast a splurge, the tug-of-war lasted exactly 0 seconds. He placed the skillet gently on the counter next to a stack of unopened bills and a half-eaten cup of ramen.
Get your things, he said.
Am I being arrested? Because I know my rights. I get a phone call and a lawyer. A bad one, but still. You're not being arrested, Harper. The way he said my name, low, rough, with a possessiveness that had no business being in a stranger's mouth, sent something electric down my spine. You're being relocated.
To where?
A black site. To the cloud spire, where I can keep an eye on you. He turned toward the door, fully expecting me to follow, and where you won't be throwing footwear at anyone else. I grabbed my duffel bag, not because I was obeying, because a room that had felt perfectly fine an hour ago now felt terrifyingly small with a scent lingering in it. The walk to the car was surreal. My neighbors were peeking through door cracks, eyes wide. Lucas Sterling, the face on every billboard in the city, was escorting the girl from 4C down the stairwell like she was visiting royalty instead of a fugitive in leggings. The night air hit me on the sidewalk and I shivered. Thin hoodie, bare feet, adrenaline crash. Without breaking stride, Lucas shrugged off his tuxedo jacket and dropped it over my shoulders. It was heavy, warm, and smelled like expensive whiskey and deep forest. I don't need your coat, I protested, even as I immediately burrowed into it. Keep it, he said, opening the door of the armored SUV. It tells them you're mine. Tells who? Everyone. I slid into leather seats that smelled like new car and absolute authority. Lucas folded in beside me. The locks engaged with a heavy, final thunk. As the convoy pulled away from the neon district, rolling past the flickering signs and cracked sidewalks of the only life I'd ever known, I looked at him. His profile was carved in the passing glow of streetlights.
Sharp.
Beautiful. Terrifying. You can't just keep me, I whispered. He turned. His eyes glowed faintly in the dark cabin. Watch me. The cloud spire was not an apartment. It was a declaration of war against the concept of modesty. The private elevator required his palm print, his retinal scan, and what I suspected was a blood oath. We shot up 100 floors so fast my ears popped. The doors opened onto a space larger than my entire apartment building. Glass walls. Smart marble floors that shifted color when you walked on them. An AI assistant that greeted us by name in a voice smoother than silk. The city sprawled below us like a circuit board of light, and I hated how beautiful it was, because beauty was just another word for how high up and how trapped I was. Guest wing is to the left, Lucas said, rolling his sleeves as he walked toward a bar cart that belonged in a Bond villain's lair. But you'll stay in the master wing. I'm not sleeping in your room. There are 4 bedrooms in the master wing, Harper.
Pick one.
Just don't try the elevator. Biometric lock. So, I am a prisoner. You're a guest with limited mobility. That's literally the definition of prisoner. Dinner's in 20 minutes. Clean up. He poured amber liquid into a glass. You look like you went dumpster diving. I ran through an alley to escape your goons, you absolute. 20 minutes. I told myself I wasn't hungry. My stomach betrayed me in exactly 18 minutes. The dining table was absurdly long, set for 2, with more silverware than I'd ever seen outside of a department store display. Lucas had changed into a black button-down, sleeves rolled to the elbows, exposing forearms that looked capable of ripping a phone book in half. Or a person. A nervous server placed a plate in front of me. Some kind of seared fish with foam and microgreens arranged like modern art. What is this? I poked the foam. It looks like the plate sneezed. Seared branzino with yuzu foam.
Eat.
I like the crab cakes I stole better. I muttered, but I picked up a fork. Why did you do it? Lucas asked suddenly.
He'd stopped eating.
He was watching me with the focused intensity of someone studying a problem he couldn't solve. Why did you throw the shoe? Most people won't even meet my eyes. You attacked. I set down the fork. You stepped on my dress. It was an accident.
No.
An accident is when you step on something and say sorry. You stepped on it, looked at it like it was garbage, and kept walking. You didn't see me. You didn't even try. That dress took me 3 months of tips to save for. It was the only thing that made me feel like a person instead of furniture. And you ruined it without even registering that I existed. Lucas went very still. I didn't see you, he said quietly. Exactly. I pushed my plate away. That's the whole problem. You don't see anyone who isn't useful to you. I stood up. I'm not eating your artisanal fish, Lucas, and I'm not your pet. You can lock the elevators, but you can't make me play house. I turned to leave, fully expecting a snarl. Harper. His voice was soft. The dangerous kind of soft. I stopped. I see you now, he said, and I haven't looked away since. I kept walking, but my hands were shaking, and it wasn't from anger. I hid in what turned out to be a media room, curling into a chair so expensive it probably had its own insurance policy. I see you now. The words circled my brain like wolves around a campfire. They sounded like a promise. They felt like a trap. Footsteps in the doorway. Lucas was leaning against the frame, holding something. My red shoe. The weapon. The heel was scuffed, the faux leather cracked. It looked pathetic in his hand. I brought your property back, he said. Great. I reached for it. I'll just take.
He pulled it back.
Allow me. Before I could process what was happening, Lucas Sterling, billionaire alpha, dropped to one knee in front of my chair. My breath evaporated. Even kneeling, he was nearly eye level with me. He took my bare foot in his hand. His skin was hot, calloused, firm. A jolt of something electric shot up my leg, and my toes curled traitorously. A bit cliché, isn't it? He murmured, looking up at me through dark lashes. The prince fitting the slipper. You're not a prince, I managed. You're a corporate overlord. And you, he said, sliding the shoe onto my foot, are a menace. His thumb traced the arch of my foot, slow and deliberate, and my entire nervous system short-circuited. Does it fit? He asked, his voice dropping to a register that should require a warning label. It fits, I whispered. Good. I'd hate to have to hunt you down again.
He stood.
The moment shattered, but the tension stayed, thick enough to drown in. Get some sleep, he said, his eyes lingering on my mouth for one dangerous second. Tomorrow we negotiate the terms of your stay. I'm not staying. I have a job. A life. Lucas smiled. It was the smile of a wolf who'd already eaten the sheep and was just waiting for the sheep to figure it out. We'll see. Now that you've got your weapon back, he nodded at the shoe. Are you going to hit me again? I looked at the shoe on my foot, then at his arrogant, unfairly handsome face.
Give me a minute, I said.
I'm weighing my options. Morning arrived with Egyptian cotton and existential dread. For 3 glorious seconds, I was just a girl waking up in the most comfortable bed on earth. Then I remembered I was essentially a hostage in a sky fortress owned by a man whose jawline was a federal crime. I marched into the living area. Lucas was at the dining table, surrounded by floating holographic screens showing stock tickers, satellite feeds, and what appeared to be a real-time map of the entire city. He was drinking espresso and looking offensively well-rested. I need to go to work, I announced. He swiped the holograms away. Good morning to you too. And no, I have a shift at the grind at 10. If I don't show up, my manager Marco fires me. And unlike you, I need money to live.
Lucas picked up a tablet.
Marco, is that the owner? I'll buy the building. Turn it into a parking structure. Consider yourself retired. My jaw nearly hit the smart marble floor. You can't just buy my life. I can buy anything, Harper. It's my one marketable skill. It's your crutch. I slammed both palms on the table and leaned in. My job is mine. My apartment, leaky pipes and all, is mine. If you strip everything away and replace it with your money, what am I? Your decoration. The arrogance in his expression flickered. Something curious replaced it. He wasn't used to people fighting for the right to stay broke. You value your independence, he observed, more than oxygen. He studied me for a long moment, then leaned back.
Fine.
A deal. I'm listening. 7 days. You stay here. Give me a chance to explain why I brought you here, why I reacted the way I did. If after 7 days you still want to go back to pouring coffee and dodging your landlord, I'll release the city lockdown and walk you home myself. And if I say no to the 7 days, then the city stays locked down until you say yes. I glared. That's blackmail. It's efficient negotiation. He extended his hand.
Large.
Scarred across the knuckles. Dangerous. 7 days in a luxury prison versus a lifetime of looking over my shoulder.
Fine, I said.
1 week. I grabbed his hand. Mistake. The instant our skin connected, something detonated. Not a spark. A wildfire. I felt his pulse, his triumph, his hunger. A wave of heat that nearly buckled my knees. The mate bond. It was real, and it was furious, and it wanted. He squeezed my hand, his thumb pressing into my palm. Deal. I yanked my hand back and pressed it against my chest like it had been burned. Because it had. I'd just shaken hands with the devil. And the devil had excellent grip strength. Day 3. Climbing the walls. Day 4. 50 laps in the infinity pool, 3 books, and a detailed mental escape plan involving bedsheets and a window. Night of day 4. 2 a.m. Insomnia. A growling stomach. The fancy dinners were beautiful, but sometimes a girl just needed carbs. I padded into the kitchen, bare feet on cool marble, and froze. Lucas was standing in front of the smart appliance station, wearing nothing but gray sweatpants. His chest was bare, a topography of sculpted muscle and faded silver scars that told stories I wasn't ready to hear. His hair was mussed. He was glaring at a chrome toaster like it had personally offended him. Having trouble, Mr. Sterling? I asked from the island.
He spun.
For a split second, the predator flashed, teeth bared, eyes glowing amber. Then he registered it was me, and the tension drained, leaving him looking almost boyish. This toaster, he muttered, jabbing at the touchscreen controls, has 17 settings. Artisan sourdough mode. Gluten-free calibration. I just want toast. I couldn't help it. I laughed. A real, full laugh that echoed off the smart glass ceiling. Move over, Alpha. I walked around the island. Dangerous proximity. He smelled like warm skin and sleep and something woodsy that made my wolf purr. Focus on the bread, Harper. You put the bread in, I said, dropping 2 slices into the slots. You press the lever. Magic. I usually have staff for this, he muttered. Yeah, well, your staff has the night off. Welcome to how the other half lives. We stood there in the dim blue glow of the appliance panels, watching a toaster. It was the most normal, domestic, weirdly intimate moment we'd had. I don't sleep much, Lucas said quietly. It's too quiet up here. I don't sleep much either, I admitted. It's too loud in my head. He looked down at me. We were close. Too close. I could feel the heat radiating off his bare skin like a furnace.
Harper, he said.
His fingers grazed my arm. The week isn't up, I reminded him, and my voice came out breathless. I know. He stepped closer. I stepped back. My spine hit the counter. Trapped between Italian marble and a billionaire werewolf in sweatpants. This was not in my 5-year plan. I'm finding it very difficult to wait, he said, his voice dropping into a register that vibrated in my rib cage. He leaned in. His gaze fell to my lips. My heart was hammering a rhythm that could power a small city. I wanted him to kiss me. Every cell in my body was screaming yes. The pull was magnetic, biological, inevitable. But I remembered the biometric locks. The guards 100 floors below. The power imbalance that hung between us like a blade. Don't, I whispered.
He stopped.
His mouth was an inch from mine. Why? Because you're the most powerful man in this city, I said, my voice shaking, and I'm just the girl you caught. Lucas pulled back. Frustration carved deep lines around his mouth. And beneath the frustration, something raw. Something that looked a lot like pain. "You are not just a girl, Harper," he said roughly. "You're the only thing in this entire city I can't control. And it's making me lose my mind."
Pop.
The toast launched out of the toaster like a tiny, bread-shaped rocket. The sound cracked through the kitchen like a gunshot. Lucas didn't look at the toast. He looked at me for one long, agonizing heartbeat. Then he turned and walked away, disappearing down the hallway, leaving me alone with a racing pulse and 2 slices of burnt bread. The next afternoon, I was in a staring contest with a holographic koi fish in the penthouse's digital aquarium feature when the elevator chimed. Lucas was in a meeting with the Apex board downstairs, something about territory contracts and market shares. I assumed the ding meant room service. I was hoping for fries. Instead, I got a perfume commercial in human form. A woman stepped out, platinum blonde, surgically enhanced, wrapped in couture that cost more than my annual salary. Her lips were the color of arterial spray, and her smile had the warmth of a tax audit. She spotted me on the sofa, wearing one of Lucas's oversized t-shirts because my own clothes were in the wash, and her nose wrinkled like she detected a gas leak. "So," she said, her voice sharp enough to fillet a fish, "this is the stray." "And you are Valerie," she announced, prowling into the room on stilettos that could double as murder weapons. "Daughter of Elder Ashworth, future Luna of the Dark Moon Pack, and the woman who should be standing where you're slouching if Lucas hadn't suffered some kind of psychotic break over a gutter rat." I looked down at myself. Oversized shirt, fuzzy socks, a granola bar in my hand. I'm not slouching. I'm reclining. It's different. Classy people recline. Valerie stopped in front of me, looking down with a sneer polished by years of country club mirror practice. "You think you've won something, little girl? You think because he dragged you up to his penthouse you matter? Lucas collects interesting things.
Art. Cars.
Apparently charity cases. And when the novelty wears off, and it will, he'll toss you back to whatever gutter you crawled out of." It was a good speech. Precise, venomous, and perfectly designed to make me feel 2 inches tall. A month ago, it might have worked. But a month ago, I hadn't nailed a billionaire in the skull with discount footwear. I stood up. Shorter than her. Less polished by approximately $1 million. But I didn't back down. "You know what, Valerie?" I tilted my head. "For someone who's so confident she's the future Luna, you reek of desperation. Like I can actually smell it. It's overpowering your, what is that, Chanel number panic." Valerie's eyes went wide. "Excuse me? You broke into a private residence to scream at a woman you've never met." I stepped into her space. "That's not queen behavior, babe. That's insecure ex-girlfriend behavior. If Lucas wanted you, you wouldn't be here trying to convince me. You'd be with him." I sniffed the air theatrically. "Also, jasmine and anxiety? Not a great combination. You might want to switch moisturizers." Valerie's face went blotchy crimson. Her hand came up, manicured claws extended. "I wouldn't." A voice like rolling thunder from the doorway. We both froze. Lucas was leaning against the elevator frame, jacket slung over one shoulder, tie loosened, looking like he'd walked off the cover of a magazine titled Dangerous Men Monthly. He didn't look angry. He looked entertained. "Lucas." Valerie dropped her hand instantly, morphing into a quivering victim. "This creature insulted me. She." I heard. Lucas pushed off the wall and walked past her without a glance. He came to stand beside me, not touching, just present. A wall between me and the world. "She said you smell desperate." My senses are rather acute, Valerie. I'd have to agree. "It's pungent." Valerie gasped so hard I thought she'd inhale her own pearls. I never." "Get out," Lucas said.
Soft. Bored.
"The most terrifying combination. Before I let Harper throw a shoe at you."
And trust me.
"She doesn't miss." The elevator doors couldn't close fast enough behind Valerie's retreating Louboutins. Lucas turned to me. A dark, slow smirk. "Gutter rat. I prefer scrappy urbanite. You handled yourself. I don't need a billionaire to fight my battles, Lucas. I've been dealing with mean girls since the 3rd grade." He stepped closer. The amusement drained, replaced by something heavier. "I know you don't need me, Harper. That's the problem. Day 6. The air in the penthouse was different, not the temperature. The AI climate system kept it at a perfect 72. But the density, every molecule felt charged, electric, swollen with something neither of us was willing to name. Every time Lucas entered a room, my skin ignited. Every time I caught his scent, cedar and rain and raw power, my stomach did a backflip my brain had not authorized. My wolf was scratching at the walls of my skull, howling, demanding I stop fighting what every cell in my body already knew. I was hiding by the pool, dangling my feet in the water, trying to cool down. It wasn't working. My blood felt carbonated. "You're avoiding me," he said from behind me. I didn't turn around. "I'm hydrating." Liar. He was right behind me. I could feel his heat. He was running hot too. The mate bond's countdown clock was deafening, and we both knew it. "Tomorrow's the last day," I whispered to the water. "Then I go home." "Is that what you want?" His voice was strained, rough at the edges. "Back to the neon district? Back to pouring coffee for people who don't tip?" "It's my life, Lucas." "This could be your life." His hands hovered over my waist, not touching. The restraint was visible in the cords of his neck, the white-knuckle grip he had on his own control. "You could have everything. You could have me." I turned around.
Mistake.
He was in a t-shirt, damp with sweat, clinging to his torso like a second skin. His eyes burned molten gold. The hunger on his face was naked, raw, and devastatingly beautiful. "I don't want everything," I said, and my voice trembled. "And I can't have you. Billionaires don't mate with baristas. It's a fairy tale, and fairy tales always end with a girl giving up her voice. I don't want your voice gone." He stepped closer, trapping me against the pool's edge. "I want to hear you yell at me for the next 100 years. I want you to throw things at me when I'm wrong. I want to argue with you until we're both too tired to stand." He leaned down. His nose grazed the curve of my neck, inhaling. A violent shiver ripped through me. "You smell like vanilla and want," he murmured against my skin. "You're burning up, Harper." "So are you," I choked. "Let me fix it." His lips brushed the sensitive spot behind my ear. "Break the deal. Stay." Every atom in my body screamed yes. But the stubborn, terrified part of me, the part that had been disappointed by every promise anyone had ever made, slammed the emergency brake. I ducked under his arm and scrambled backward.
No.
"The deal stands. One more day." I ran for the door. He didn't chase me, but his voice followed me down the corridor, deep and full of a dark promise. "Run, Harper. But tomorrow, the clock stops." Day 7. Noon.
The deadline.
I packed my duffel bag. It took 90 seconds. Hoodie, leggings, stolen toiletries. The sum total of my life fit in a canvas sack. I walked into the living room with the bag on my shoulder. Lucas was standing at the floor-to-ceiling windows, silhouetted against the obsidian city skyline. He looked like a man carved from grief and granite. "I'm ready," I said. My voice was hollow. "Time to pay up, Alpha." He didn't turn around.
No.
I blinked. "Excuse me?"
He turned.
He looked wrecked. Dark circles bruised his eyes. His jaw was clenched, so hard, I thought his teeth might crack. "No," he repeated. "I'm not letting you go." The duffel bag slid from my shoulder and hit the floor. "We had a deal. You gave me your word." "To hell with my word." The words erupted from him, and the smart glass windows vibrated. "I lied. I lied to keep you here, because I thought 7 days would be enough to make you see that this is real. But I was wrong. It wasn't enough. And I am not sending my mate back to a crumbling apartment to scrape for pennies while I sit 100 floors above her." The betrayal hit harder than the anger. "You lied." My voice cracked. "You manipulated me. I protected you. You trapped me." I grabbed a throw pillow and launched it at his face. He didn't dodge. It bounced off his chest. "You're just like everyone else. You think power gives you the right to decide what's best for me." I grabbed a designer vase next. "I trusted you." Smash. It exploded against the wall inches from his head. He didn't flinch. "Harper, don't. Don't Harper me, you arrogant, controlling, lying wolf." I was screaming. Tears were streaming down my face. I reached for a lamp. Lucas moved. He crossed the room in a blur and caught my wrist before I could throw it.
He didn't hurt me.
He just held. Let go. I fought him, kicked his shins, struggled against an iron grip that wasn't cruel, just unbreakable. I hate you. I hate you. I know, he rasped, pulling me against his chest. Hate me. Throw every piece of furniture in this place in my head. But do not ask me to let you walk out that door. Because I can't. I stopped fighting, looked up at him. His eyes were wet. Lucas Sterling, the man who made markets crash with a whisper, crying.
Why?
I whispered, why are you doing this? Because if you leave, his voice broke, actually fractured like glass. It kills me, not figuratively. My wolf is chosen. If you walk out that door, Harper, you take my soul with you. His hand came up to cup my face. His thumb wiped a tear from my cheek. I'm not keeping you because I own you, he whispered, pressing his forehead against mine. I'm keeping you because I am yours.
Completely.
Pathetically, hopelessly yours. The fight drained out of me. What rushed in to fill the space was far more dangerous.
Hope.
You're an idiot, I whispered. I know. You could have just asked. His eyes searched mine, desperate. If I'd asked, would you have stayed? I reached up and tangled my fingers in his hair. I guess we'll never know, because you decided to be a tyrant. Old habits. Silas Lucas. Say that again. What? Your name?
No.
The part where you almost called me the wrong name, because you're so flustered. Oh, shut up and kiss me, you idiot. Something snapped in him. The restraint he'd held for 7 days disintegrated. He didn't ask permission. He didn't negotiate. He crushed his mouth against mine in a kiss that wasn't gentle, wasn't sweet. It was a claiming, a demand.
A war.
I met him fire for fire. I wrapped my arms around his neck and kissed him back like I was trying to consume him because I was. He lifted me like I weighed nothing. My legs went around his waist. He walked us toward the bedroom, kicking the door open without breaking the kiss. Say it, he growled against my lips. Tell me you accept the bond. I accept. He laid me on the bed and followed me down, his weight a heavy, grounding anchor. Clothes didn't survive. The bond roared to life, a golden thread pulling tight, stitching our souls together at the seams. Mine, he snarled, eyes incandescent. Yours, I challenged. Prove it. He proved it. And when the wave finally crested, when the world went white, and the bond locked into place with the finality of a vault door, I felt his teeth graze the mating spot on my neck. May I, he groaned. Even now, lost in the fire, he was asking. He'd learned. Yes, I breathed. Do it, wolf. He bit down. The pain was a bright, sharp flash, instantly replaced by a flood of euphoria that rewired my entire existence. I felt his emotions pour into me, devotion, relief, obsession. I bit him back, marking his shoulder, claiming the billionaire as mine. We collapsed tangled in 1,000-thread count sheets, breathing the same air. 2 halves. Finally whole. I woke to sunlight and an empty bed.
Panic.
Instant, gut-twisting panic. I sat up, clutching the sheet. Lucas. Bathroom. Empty. Closet. Empty. A note on the nightstand. Sharp handwriting on sterling corpse stationery. I have to fix this. Don't leave the penthouse. Fix what? A deep, bass-heavy boom shook the windows. Not thunder. I ran to the balcony. Smoke rose from the Eastern Financial District. Below, at the base of the cloud spire, a massive crowd had gathered with signs and megaphones. The giant digital screens on the surrounding buildings all showed the same breaking news banner. Sterling CEO held civilian hostage. Apex board demands resignation. I stared. They didn't know I was his mate. They didn't know what had happened. All they knew was the story the Apex board had leaked to every media outlet in the city, that Lucas Sterling had locked down Obsidian City and imprisoned an innocent Omega in his penthouse. He hadn't left me. He'd gone to fight a war. The bedroom door clicked open. Lucas looked like he'd been through a demolition. Shirt untucked, hair wrecked, the gold in his eyes dimmed to a tired flicker. You're awake, he said, leaning against the door like it was the only thing keeping him vertical. I saw the news. The board leaked it. They want your position. They've wanted me out for years. A bitter, exhausted laugh. The mad CEO kidnaps an innocent girl. It writes itself. He walked toward me, stopping just out of reach. His eyes found the mating mark on my neck, purple and raw and beautiful, and he winced. I ruined this, he whispered. I wanted to give you the world. Instead, I painted a target on your back. Lucas. I'm stepping down. The floor dropped out from under me. What? I've drafted the statement. If I resign as Alpha and CEO, the board backs off. They get the company and the pack, which is what they actually want. In exchange, I've negotiated safe passage for both of us. I have a place upstate. Quiet. No cameras. No politics. He reached out, fingers grazing my cheek. You wanted freedom, Harper. A life that was yours.
I can give you that.
But I can't give you that and be this. I looked at him. This powerful, arrogant, beautiful man who had once stepped on my dress without noticing, now willing to burn his empire to the ground to keep me safe. Stepping down wasn't just quitting a job. Being Alpha was biological.
It was coded into his DNA.
Asking him to walk away was like asking a wolf to stop breathing. And he was doing it for me, not with words, with his life. You absolute idiot, I whispered, tears spilling over. I'm offering you an exit, Harper. Take it.
No.
I stepped into him, placing both hands on his chest, right over his pounding heart. You don't get to quit, I said fiercely. You don't get to run away to a cabin and hide. You are the Alpha, and I am not some damsel who needs to be smuggled out the service entrance. They will tear you apart. The press, the board, people like Valerie, they will eat you alive. I smirked, though my hands were shaking. Let them try. I have a cast iron skillet and flawless aim. Hope and fear wrestled across his face. Are you saying? I'm saying we don't run. Chin high, shoulders back. We go down there. We face them. And we tell them that if they want the Alpha, they go through his Luna first. I grabbed his collar and pulled him down for a kiss that tasted like adrenaline and war. Now, I said, pulling back, get me a dress. And make it red. The styling team the AI summoned tried to put me in pastel pink and apology beige. Your ma'am, a nervous stylist squeaked, holding up a high-necked chiffon gown. This says I am demure and cooperative. Burn it, I said. The board strongly recommends covering the, Another stylist gestured toward my neck. Blemish. A deep voice from the doorway. Don't touch it. Lucas walked in. Fresh tuxedo. Razor sharp. The stylist scattered. He was carrying a garment bag. They tried to make me an Easter egg. I complained. You are not an Easter egg. He unzipped the bag. You are fire. The dress was deep crimson. Blood and wine. Structured, sleek, with a slit up the thigh. It wasn't a dress for a victim. It was armor. He dismissed the staff and zipped me in himself, his knuckles grazing my spine, his lips pressing against my shoulder blade. Ready? He asked our reflection. Terrified. I admitted. What if I trip? What if I say something stupid? You won't. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a pair of shoes. My shoes. The red heels. He'd had them cleaned and reinforced, the faux leather polished until it almost looked real. He dropped to one knee, just like that first night, and slid them onto my feet. These started a war, he said, looking up. Now let them end it. We walked out hand in hand. The corridor stretched for miles. We could hear the press room before we reached the doors, a roaring beast of cameras and shouted questions. Do we have a plan? I whispered. Yes, Lucas said. I growl. You talk. That's a terrible plan. It's all I've got. The doors opened. A wall of blinding light. The physical force of 1,000 voices. Flashbulbs detonating. Microphones thrust forward like weapons. Did he force you? Are you pregnant? Who are you? Lucas stepped forward, a growl building in his chest. I squeezed his hand and stepped past him. I walked to the podium. Red dress. Red shoes. Mating mark visible on my throat like a badge of honor.
They didn't go quiet.
They kept screaming. So I leaned into the microphone and said, loud and clear, if you don't shut up, I'm taking off my shoe. Instant silence. Apparently, the shoe incident had become legend. I looked out at the sea of faces. Reporters, board members, curious elites. They were all waiting for the tearful victim, the scandal, the breakdown. They got me instead. My name is Harper Quinn, and contrary to the ticker on the bottom of your screens, I was not kidnapped. Then explain the lockdown, a reporter shouted. He shut down the entire city. He held you in his penthouse against your will. I glanced back at Lucas. He stood behind me, arms crossed, watching the room with lethal calm. He shut down the city, I said, turning back, because he's dramatic. Nervous laughter rippled through the room. And he kept me in the penthouse because he made a mistake. He thought he could buy my time. He thought he could order my affection. I paused, letting the words land. He was wrong, and I told him so, repeatedly, at high volume, with projectiles. More laughter. Less nervous this time. So you're free to go? A skeptical voice from the back. You're a low-ranking Omega. He's the most powerful alpha on the continent. The power dynamic. The power dynamic shifted. I cut in sharply, the moment he realized that rank doesn't equal respect. I reached up and swept my hair aside, fully exposing the mating mark. The room exploded with flashbulbs. He didn't claim me because I was weak. He claimed me because I was the only person brave enough to tell him he was being a jerk. I looked directly into the camera, past the reporters, past the board members, speaking to every girl in the neon district who'd ever felt invisible. I am not a victim. I am his mate. And I'm not here to be a silent figurehead. I'm here to make sure he never steps on anyone without looking down first. Lucas moved to the podium. He didn't address the press. He took my hand, raised it to his lips, and kissed my knuckles in front of the entire world. Long live the Luna, he said into the microphone. The room erupted. Not hostile this time. Electric. We turned to leave, but the elevator doors opened before we reached them. A silver-haired man in a tailored gray suit stepped out. He wore the platinum insignia of the Apex board on his lapel. Behind him, Valerie clutched a tablet and looked like she'd been sucking lemons. Not so fast. The elder blocked our path. The press may be satisfied, but the board is not. Per Article 7 of the Pact Charter, we invoke a formal challenge to the bond's legitimacy. Lucas's growl returned, low and dangerous. You don't have the authority. We have the votes, the elder said coolly. Tomorrow, the board chamber, full session. Your mate will submit to the interrogation. If she cannot withstand the combined authority of the senior alphas, the bond is declared invalid and your leadership is forfeit. My stomach dropped. The interrogation. I'd heard stories. A dozen of the most powerful alphas in North America unleashing their combined pheromonal pressure on a single target. It was designed to break spirits, to crush anyone who wasn't born into power. Lucas stepped in front of me. Over my dead. I'll do it, I said. Both men looked at me. Harper, you don't know what you're agreeing to. I'm agreeing to shut them up permanently. I looked at the elder. Tomorrow, I'll be there. In red. The elder smirked, the condescending smile of a man who'd already written off a barista from the neon district. He shouldn't have done that. The board chamber was designed to intimidate. A massive obsidian table, 12 high-back chairs, and 12 alpha elders who collectively controlled more wealth than most nations. The air was thick with competing pheromones, each one a different flavor of dominance, designed to press down on lesser wolves like a hydraulic vice. They expected me to walk in shaking. I walked in carrying a coffee. A latte, specifically. Old habits. Miss Quinn, the chairman, Elder Ashworth, Valerie's father, began, steepling his fingers. You understand the gravity of this proceeding? Absolutely. I sat down in the single chair placed in the center of the room, facing all 12 of them. The pressure was immediate, a crushing wave of alpha authority that made my vision blur and my wolf scream to submit. I took a sip of my latte. Great acoustics in here, by the way. Let us begin. Ashworth leaned forward. The board contends that Lucas Sterling's judgment has been compromised by a fraudulent bond with a low-ranking Omega of no strategic value. That he locked down an entire city, disrupted commerce, and imprisoned a civilian, all symptoms of impaired leadership. The pressure increased. Two elders on my left were releasing pheromones so thick I could taste copper on my tongue. My hands trembled. I hid them under the table. "Miss Quinn," another elder said, his voice dripping with disdain. "What exactly do you bring to this pack? No wealth, no connections, no rank. You are a barista." "I'm also a freelance illustrator," I said. "But you're right, my client list is thin. So let me tell you what I do bring." I reached into the folder I'd carried in, the one they'd assumed held nothing, because what could a barista possibly have to present to a boardroom full of billionaires? I pulled out a stack of printouts and slid them across the obsidian table. "Page 1, I said, my voice steady despite the biological hurricane trying to flatten me. "Elder Ashworth's offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, funded by PAC Treasury diversions totaling $14.7 million over 3 years. Ashworth's face went white. "Page 2. Elder Monroe's shell company that won the Obsidian City infrastructure contract despite bidding 40% above market rate. Funny how his brother-in-law was on the selection committee." Monroe's chair scraped backward. "Pages 3 through 11 cover the rest of you. Embezzlement, tax fraud, contract manipulation, misuse of PAC emergency funds." I took another sip of my latte. "I may be a barista, gentlemen, but I grew up in the Neon District. I know what corruption looks like because I've been living in the wreckage of it my entire life. The difference is I also know how to use a search engine." Dead silence. "Here's what I bring to this pack," I said, standing up. The alpha pressure was crushing. My knees were shaking, but I locked them and stayed vertical. "I bring the perspective of every person you've forgotten about. Every omega in the Neon District who can't afford heat. Every small business you buried under zoning laws written to benefit your portfolios. I bring accountability. And if that terrifies you more than a shoe to the head, then maybe the problem isn't my rank." I looked at each of them in turn. Some couldn't meet my eyes.
Now.
"You can validate the bond and keep your dirty laundry between us. Or you can challenge it, and I email this file to every news outlet in the city." I smiled. "Your choice. I don't need an answer today. I'm a very patient woman." I walked out. Lucas was waiting in the hallway, arms crossed, jaw tight with anxiety. He searched my face. "How did it go?" "I think Elder Monroe might need new pants." The board validated the bond unanimously within the hour. That was 6 months ago. Today was different. Today was the Sterling Annual Charity Gala. 1 year to the day since a broke barista in a thrift store dress threw a shoe at a billionaire and accidentally started a love story. "Harper." Lucas's voice drifted from the bedroom, calm and infuriatingly patient. "We're going to be late." "I can't find them," I shouted from inside the walk-in closet, which was currently buried under an avalanche of silk, tulle, and the general chaos of a woman who still wasn't used to having more than 3 outfits. "The shoes are gone, Lucas. The universe is punishing me. It's a sign. We should stay home and order Thai food." I emerged wearing a gown the color of midnight. Navy blue, a deliberate callback to the dress he destroyed a year ago. But this one was reinforced with subtle crystal beading and fit like it was painted on. I looked like a Luna. I felt like a beautiful disaster. "I can't lead a wolf pack barefoot," I insisted. "It's terrible optics." Lucas was leaning against the vanity, looking unfairly gorgeous in a modern black suit that made his old tuxedos look like Halloween costumes. He wasn't worried. He was smirking. "You're not going barefoot," he said. He brought his hands from behind his back. Dangling from his fingers were the red, full-leather stilettos.
Cleaned. Polished.
Heels reinforced. My breath caught. "You stole them," I accused, though my heart did that stupid flip it always did when he looked at me like that. "I secured them, because I know you. I knew you'd panic. And I wanted to be the one to save the day." Hero complex. "Only for you." He walked to me, and the city glittered behind us through the glass, our city, healing, changing, not perfect, but getting there, because we were getting there together. Lucas dropped to one knee. It wasn't submission. It wasn't a power move. It was our ritual. A quiet moment of tenderness in a life that was anything but quiet. "Lift," he said gently. I put my hand on his shoulder. The bond hummed between us, warm and permanent, a golden thread that would never break. He slid the shoe onto my foot. Then the other. His hands lingered, thumbs tracing my ankles. He didn't stand up right away. He stayed there, looking up at me with eyes that held the same golden fire that had terrified me a year ago in a ballroom full of strangers. Now that fire just felt like home. "You know," he murmured, "the last time you wore these, you gave me a concussion. You deserved it." I did. No hesitation. And I'd take 1,000 shoes to the head if it meant ending up here. He stood, towering over me, enveloping me in a scent of cedar and rain and devotion. He kissed my forehead, then my lips. Slow.
Soft.
A promise. "Ready to face the wolves, my Luna?" I looked at the shoes. I looked at the man who would dismantle his empire if I asked for a match. I looked at my reflection, fierce, loved, and dangerous, and I thought about the girl I'd been a year ago. The one who felt invisible. The one who thought the nicest thing she'd ever own was a $30 dress. She hadn't been wrong about being invisible. She'd been wrong about what she was worth. Sometimes the universe doesn't hand you a fairy tale. Sometimes it hands you a cheap pair of heels and a target and says, "Figure it out." And sometimes, if you're stubborn enough, if you're brave enough to throw the shoe, you end up exactly where you were always supposed to be. Standing in red shoes. Standing in your power. Not because someone rescued you, but because you rescued yourself and the right person was smart enough to kneel down and help you put your armor back on. I took his arm, grinning sharp enough to cut glass. "Ready," I said. "Just promise me one thing. Anything. Don't step on the dress." Lucas laughed, deep and real, pulling me toward the door. "Wouldn't dare." If you made it all the way here, thank you for listening. Stories like this one only keep going because of listeners like you. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, drop a comment, and make sure you're subscribed so you never miss a new upload. Every bit of support means the world and helps bring more stories to life. I'll see you in the next one.